It's Wednesday, which means it's Big News Wednesdays with Jayar Jackson. Jayar, how's it going?
Oh man, it's going great. I have some great news for you guys. Everyone out there listening, this is crazy. If you go to Home Depot and you rent the box trucks there, you get it for like $30. All you gotta put is a deposit down. And half the time, they don't even care if you bring it back. It's crazy. If a bunch of birds drop all over the car, they'll give you like a free wash. This is crazy. Home Depot for the win.
Okay, so I was just telling about experience I had where I got to meet an awesome viewer of TYT and TDR there. I wanna be very clear. This is not an endorsement of Home Depot. In particular, because their owner is like really bad, like Trump support and everything. I just live close to a Home Depot and I needed to transport something, and there was this really nice guy working there. But anyway,
first of all, John, everyone lives next to a home. Everyone lives near Home Depot.
That's true. That's true. Go to Home Depot for Big Deals Wednesday. No, anyway. Okay. I got during the break. I got to talk to my producers. They're putting some in my doc. Everybody, get off my case today.
Oh, this
is not what the news is about, but the news is indeed big in a couple different areas. Big potential consequences Wednesday, but probably not. And especially, we're to be closing out the show with Meanwhile In. It is Big Animal News Wednesdays. I don't know if you know this, but animals are crazy and they've been getting up to a lot of nonsense, and we need to check in on it, okay? Because they I'm talking about like sexual perversion, extreme sports, all animals. And we're gonna check in on it in a little bit. But anyway, we have a lot to get to before our Meanwhile In. So over the next 90 minutes, we're gonna be talking about Steve Bannon and demonization of the unhoused, just vile stuff being said and done. We're gonna give you a little bit of information in a bit about some of what the Trump administration wanted to do with the border. And you're probably thinking, wait, how bad could that be? I mean, we know what they actually did and we know some of what they proposed. No, it gets even crazier. So we're gonna have that for you soon. So before that though, please hit the like button, share the stream. And if you want to send us any tweets, comments, super chats, all that, we'll respond. With that said, Jayar, you ready to talk about some news?
Yes, now I'm ready.
Okay, let's do it. God damn producers, let's jump into this video.
Mr. Bannon will comply with our investigation or he will face the consequences.
That was Benny Thompson right there, and giving us a little update on Steve Bannon. So Steve Bannon was asked to testify before the January 6th investigation commission. He decided, I'm not gonna do that. They said, if you don't do it, we're gonna bring you up on charges. And he was like, I doubt it. I double dog dare you to do that. And it looks like they are. So yesterday, the actual committee voted unanimously to effectively hold him in contempt of Congress for defying its subpoena. And there's a full vote that's gonna be happening a little bit later on today. By the main show, we'll probably know what's gonna happen there. But it's almost certainly gonna pass, and that means that Merrick Garland will soon be legally required to bring charges against Bannon for a grand jury. That does not mean necessarily that he will, or that if there are charges, there will be any actual like penalties, any actual consequences for it. There are still multiple steps that we need to pass, but we're being teased a bit. Hey, maybe there are consequences for actions, and it's nice to be teased from time to time. To up the tease just a bit, contempt of Congress is punishable by a maximum fine of $100,000 and up to a year in prison, which I get that we're talking about Steve Bannon, and I guess it is about insurrection. That seems like a lot, especially the money. $100,000. I don't know, Jayar. What do you think about those potential consequences?
Bro, that's federal. Like, you're breaking the law like federally. Like what the US Congress is subpoenaing you for a federal charge for something to happen, an attack on a Capitol. I honestly thought it was a little bit small because of the positioning of the guy. There's certain, I'm no legal expert here, John. My name is not Adrian Lawrence, but I did hear, at least from my understanding, is they can change, of course, they'll change bail amounts and all that stuff or fines. Now there's fines that are set, but bail amounts are different for each person. If you have tons of money and you feel like you might be a flight risk or something like that, yeah, they'll make it harder for people to just be out on bond. But it seems standard, 100,000 a year in prison. You can't exceed the limits, but let's keep it real. The problem is he won't get the limit. He'll know he's gonna get $100,000 fine in a year in prison. No way.
Yeah. And by the way, like, let's say that he does. Let's say he gets $100,000 fine. We already know how this goes in practice. He is just going to get red hat wearers to give him the money. Like, that's, even though he's scammed them so many times, but whatever, it ain't my money. Okay, so we're gonna have more on Bannon. Why do they think it's so important that they find out what Bannon knows and have him testify under oath? We'll have that for you, but to be clear, the fact that they're proceeding with this is about Bannon, but it's also about sending a message. And Benny Thompson is gonna make that clear in this clip.
Maybe he's willing to be a martyr to the disgraceful cause of whitewashing what happened on January 6th, or demonstrating his complete loyalty to the former president. So I want our witnesses to understand something very plainly. If you're thinking or following the path Mr. Bannon has gone down, you are on notice that this is what you'll face. The process we began tonight is a grave one.
Okay, so other people potentially could face the same consequences. And on the theme of teasing you, we're sort of doing a little bit of a play, a little bit of an imaginative exercise. Let's imagine, what if we were in a functioning democracy where there was the rule of law? Eventually, they're gonna wanna bring in, I'm assuming Barr, I'm assuming chief of staff, I'm assuming the president himself. Like, wouldn't you wanna bring those people in? And none of them would wanna testify, so presumably this same thing would then happen. We'll see if, like, executive privilege or whatever might apply more specifically to some of them than it is to Bannon, who is, like, they term him a private citizen, which seems like an over dignification of what he is. He's just some weird rotting rando, really. But anyway, he's not protected in that way. Others might be, but Jayar, what do you think?
Well, okay, so the thing is, Benny Thompson here is drawing lines in the sand. And we already, at least maybe not we, but I have my reservations, or at least my skepticism about the degree to which these Democrats are gonna go, or just the select committee, or even Merrick Garland's gonna go as far as pursuing things like this. So if you start saying things like, hey, he may wanna be a martyr for the cause, and anyone else who thinks about it, you might wanna rethink it, because look, we're about to do to this guy. Hey, if you don't do it to this guy, you're just fulfilling that same promise that, hey, we talk a big game, but we don't actually do anything about it. Because I still believe Donald Trump's not gonna be on the hook for anything he's done that everyone has seen him do, that has been proven outright in front of everyone what he's been doing. So this is just an extension. Or you can find gonna use some of his minions, some of his helpers as these examples that you're talking about. Because if you set an example of one guy, that means you can't start shortening it on the rest of these guys. Because it's the whole idea. It's what we say about street crimes themselves. Hey, we need a deterrent, or else these guys are gonna run crazy in the streets. Same thing here.
No, deterrence is for, like, stealing bread. It's not for insurrections or whatever. We don't need to deter nothing there. Everything that you said, I think makes sense in a world that I wish we had, but we don't. I'm surprised that they did even this much.
Yeah.
The audience knows what I think about pinning your hopes for the future on the Dems growing a spine and doing what's right. Or you don't even have to go that far, doing something. Like, I think the Dems will do something someday. You're an idiot, you're a stupid idiot. They're not gonna do nothing. But yeah, I guess we'll see. Like I said, the invocation of executive privilege and all that for some of the others might be a little bit more difficult. I want people to bear in mind, like, I'm being pessimistic, and I'm kind of joking around, but like, it's easy to forget that, considering that Trump has been impeached twice. And remember, even then, it wasn't really a consequence because the Senate didn't care what he did. Like, that was for Ukraine and for the insurrection. But remember, like, all the stuff that, like, they were looking into for literally years, like, there was never anything for that. Not only was he not punished for it, he never even had to go in and answer questions. We're not even talking about public testimony. Under oath. We're talking about him literally having to talk. He never had to do that. And, like, for whatever you think of some of the parts of that, it is indisputable that he fired the head of the FBI to stop the head of the FBI from investigating him. And that's fine. I don't know what Bannon knows, but it ain't as bad as that. And there were no consequences for that. So just bear that in mind. Anyway, I want to give you a little bit more information though. Liz Cheney, who suddenly some people like think is the best. I still think she's a Republican and a Cheney at that. But anyway, she said, Mr. Bannon and Mr. Trump's privilege arguments appear to reveal one thing. They suggest that President Trump was personally involved in the planning and execution of January 6th, and this committee will get to the bottom of that. Sure. Well, I will say I think I could help them in this because I was inspired by Ken Klippenstein, and so I did some digging, and I found a video of the president. I know this is gonna like blow your mind. He told a bunch of the rioters to go to the Capitol and riot. He told them to go there. In fact, I found video of him saying he'd be there too. Now that was a lie, he didn't actually do it, but he sent them to the Capitol. And if anyone on the committee would like to see this video, I will send them a VHS or point them to all of the publicly available links to it that we've had for 9 months. Anyway, so we'll see about that. On Bannon, he said on January 5th on his show, all hell is going to break loose as evidence that they say it's evidence he had some foreknowledge about extreme events that would occur. He also said it's not gonna happen like you think it's gonna happen. It's going to be extraordinarily different. And all I can say is strap in.
Oh my God.
He said that on the 5th. On the 5th.
Strap in. So strap in. He knows about all that stuff's happening. Liz Cheney is coming out as this leader from the committee somehow because everyone's giving the attention to her because it's rare for a Republican, her and Adam Kinzinger, to be on the side of actually pursuing something of some kind of responsibility for Trump.
Yeah.
So they're getting all the headlines. Liz Cheney's berating her fellow Republicans, and Adam Kinzinger is constantly speaking out, doing interviews. Great. I'm glad they're on the right side when it comes to this. And as you mentioned, they're still Republicans. Her name is still Liz Cheney. So let's not forget one thing. They both still voted against raising the debt limit with Democrats. So let's not forget that they still are playing the same political games and are aligning themselves with Mitch McConnell, who's trying to play the back scene role behind all this. So they're still the same people. Let's not forget that. We can be like, great, I'm glad you're on board for saving the democracy and actually holding people to account that attempted to undercut it. But let's not forget who they are, because this is gonna transition to who's gonna run for president. Oh my God, they should now be in the Senate, all this stuff, So cool, I hear you. Just keep it tempered to understand who you're still working with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I might not even go that far in terms of them being willing to save democracy. They're willing to criticize Trump and have some, consequences for Trump. Like if we were to broaden our definition of saving democracy, I think we would find that they're very supportive of a lot of voter suppression and all of that. Which is why, and like, by the way, what we ask you to do is fairly obvious and seems to make a lot of sense, which is stuff your mind with all of the information and consider all of it simultaneously and come to a rational conclusion based on that. What they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do, the good things they've said and advocated for, and the 99% of the things that they've said and done that are terrible. That's nuance. It's not sexy, but you don't have to come out of it thinking like she's great now, because she's not. But this is good, I guess. We'll see, assuming actually something comes of it. Anyway, so yeah.
What do you think? I'm curious. Do you think Merrick Garland's gonna do anything? It sucks that you have to.
Why you gotta put me on the spot?
Doesn't it suck that you have to think about it? The automatic answer in America, the law and order. We keep things straight here in this country. That this country, if you ask, is the Department of Justice gonna pursue charges on a guy who's thumbing his nose at a subpoena, a congressional subpoena for an attempt to attack the Capitol?
I hope. I'll say. Oh my God, I'm gonna say yes. I don't want to. Why did you make me say? Wait, well now you have to go on the record too, because we're gonna clip this out eventually to mock one of us.
I don't even know the question.
You asked it.
We doing the next?
Merrick Garland. So
honestly, I think they're gonna do something. It's gonna be very tempered. It's gonna be like a $50,000 fine and hey, make sure you don't do that again.
Hold up, to be clear, I'm not necessarily saying that they're gonna get him. Announcing that the DOJ is pursuing charges is just one of the steps along the way. And one of the issues, by the way, and you should, like some of the Democrats on the panel apparently are worried about this. If you do that, this is not going to be adjudicated in a week, This is a thing that's going to take a while. And there is some concern that the Republicans are actually, they kind of like this. They want him and others to do this because maybe that drags it out. And why does that matter? Well, first of all, it potentially caused the audience who actually cares about this to move on over time. Maybe they think it'll help in the midterms. I don't think that's as cut and dried as they're implying. But let's also bear in mind that the midterms are next year, and the part of that it's important is not just what influences them, it's also what comes out of them, because what might come out of them, and almost certainly will, is a Republican majority that is not gonna continue the January 6th commission. And so if they drag it out past that, they can just kill it. They'll just kill it, and then there will be no more issue.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. That's honestly the ultimate goal, because really, why does someone like Steve Bannon care if he's receiving these potential penalties when he's got the former president backing him up and getting enough people to raise all this money and tout him as this like warrior against the oppressive government? So yeah, I mean, it's a strategy they're going for. And also, even as the midterms go, I think they would use it as a bit of a thing. Look at these Democrats coming to attack your former president's best right-hand man. Like, they're gonna turn it into this calling act for everyone to come forward and make sure that you vote in 22 because they're coming for our institutions. Like, everything they do that's wrong, they will weaponize it as a reason to fight back against the people that are trying to keep things going a certain direction.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We're gonna be tracking it. One last thing, I hadn't known about this actually, but in addition to the stuff he said, Bannon said on his show that implied that he was involved, apparently investigators say that he appeared to have multiple roles relevant to the investigation, including in constructing the Stop the Steal public relations effort. Well, clearly he and a lot of others were involved in that. That doesn't necessarily mean that he knew anything. He could just be trying to glom onto it. They're all grifters. But anyway, also he participated in events from a war room in DC, in a hotel with other allies of Mr. Trump, including Roger Stone, Rudy Giuliani, and other Trump lawyer John Eastman. It kind of seems like you were involved then. Kind of want to find out what was going on in there. But I'm sure Roger Stone and Rudy Giuliani will come in and testify without being required to by a court of law. We'll see. Anyway, we are going to go to our first break. I do want to let you know one important, crucial thing. I probably should have led the show with this before we go to the break. Everybody has been really interested in this jacket, and one of you might be in luck. It might be too late already, but I was told that there was one XL left. All the rest apparently are sold out. Apparently there's been a lot of interest in this, so hurry if you want the XL. And with that said, we've got more news coming after this. That's shoptyt.com. Probably should have said that part. I'm bad at this stuff. Anyway, let's see what's going on out there in the audience. I wanted to start with this. I saw on Twitch, Haiku Dragon posted a comment saying, I'm needing an extra bit of love today. My best friend of 15 years, my schnauzer, Brewster, passed yesterday. He was the awesomest fur baby ever. I already miss him so much. Thanks in advance for any good vibes, mojo, energy y'all can send my way. That is devastating. I'm so sorry. Especially you build up such a relationship over 15 years. That is very, very sad. Sorry. Okay, let's see. Daniel Velasquez says, the only reason Jayar didn't do Monday's top 10 this week was because it would be full with hate for Priuses. We did basically our top 10 red flags that make us judge people. And my number, I was gonna spoil it, but no, if you wanna find out what my number one was, which has to do with Jayar a little bit, you'll have to become a tier 2 or tier 3 member on YouTube.
Jesus, slander.
Okay, Forbesilla says, I had a really weird dream the other night where Jayar was trying to purchase porn from me. Is that the secret behind Jayar's Only Candies? You guys are all out of your minds, by the way.
Only Candies is a one-stop shop for anything you need. Whether I get it from someone else, it's gonna be there.
I don't want to know. Maybe I wonder if Lena Peek is in the audience. Anyway, Rosita the Q Dragon said, it's my 39th birthday and I'd adore an emphatic birthday wish from my favorite TYT hosts. Thanks for everything you do. Proud to rep the Dragon Squad in Omaha. Much love to the Dragon Daddy. Quasita, happy 39th. I hope that it's fun. I hope that you find a little bit of pleasure in your life.
John, she said from her favorite TYT host. So happy birthday. Congratulations. I hope you have a great day. I forgot your name, but
so she got what she wanted, and then she had to listen to Jayar babble too. Anyway, okay. Name I Need a Building says, I don't know who needs to hear this, but take a deep breath, a sip of water, and update the intro to your news show. I think the way May Money into Building wrote it WUTER, and I feel attacked. I feel targeted by this. I think this was an attack against me. Anyway, okay, let's see. In Twitch, Mother Effing Woman Dragon gifted a tier 1 sub. Thank you for that. Mark Bugs hit 11 months as a subscriber. Says 1 more month until my Twitch first birthday. Glad to continue to be part of the change. We'll make the world better, hopefully in time to stop it from burning. Sup Jayar, heard from someone that you don't like dogs. Is this true?
I have a dog.
Do you like him?
I like dogs so much. Dog? I don't get them until I have the ability to have full attention and care for them. So I haven't had a dog until now because my wife and kid got one, and yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a good dog. He's a good dog.
I'm a dog person over cats, if that's what we're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, but to be clear, he hates all animals. Anyway, Brandy Lou gifted 5 tier 1 subs on Twitch. Thank you so much for that. Oh my God, Keyjohn just made a point. I'm gonna have to remember this for a meanwhile in. Okay, I'm not gonna say anything now. Television the Cat hit 14 months. Thank you. Chica DeBarge hit 1 month. Thank you. Barkley T gifted a tier 1 sub. Very nice of you. Alaskan Snow Dragon asked, JR, what about that New York Giants hat you wore on Friday? Did you actually think they would beat the Rams?
I'm a Rams fan. No.
Yeah.
I didn't think they'd beat the Rams.
Oh. So I don't understand this.
Well, I wear many sports hats, and many sports fans think that if you wear a hat, that means you have to be a diehard fan of that team. I just wear it because it worked.
I had a Charlotte Hornets jersey as a kid because I thought it was cool. That's it. I think many people probably did. Anyway, sports. Love ya. Okay, we got some more news coming up, but we do have just a little quick transition, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay, let's see. Before we jump into it, I just wanted to read one more message. This was from Vicky Gray. Vicky, thank you as always. Sent a nice big super chat. Says, JR, we see your tube man Barry? Pretty please, he makes me laugh. Good for one's heart and soul. Happy Wednesday from Santa blah blah. I don't know if you still have it around you.
I always have it. It's near my desk. But no, Barry's always there. I'm actually most proud that you remembered his name is Barry, because I didn't think anybody
not remember that.
I thought no one paid attention to my flailing, wacky inflatable arm and tube man, whatever the hell it's called.
I'll try.
I don't want to overdo it, so I rarely bring it up.
Okay, well, we'll see. That sounds bad, by the way. Okay, so anyway, we're gonna move on to some other news. Let's do it. How crazy did it almost get at the border under the previous administration? Well, back in 2020, Mark Esper, who was at that point the defense secretary, learned of a plan that was cooking that apparently had Stephen Miller at its heart, but was being discussed in the White House to send as many as 250,000 soldiers to the border. 250,000. How much is that? Well, that is more than half the active US Army. It's a sixth of our entire military that would just be sent to stand at the border and see what happens. To put it in perspective, in comparison to other foreign engagements, it would have represented a force 2.5 times the size of the 100,000 American troops in Afghanistan at the height of the 20-year war in that country. It would have been bigger than our presence in Iraq. The most we ever had in Iraq was 170,000. So we sent 170,000 to try to build a country back. They wanted to send 80,000 more to stop someone from getting into the US and building like a better life for themselves. It would have been the biggest use of the military inside the United States since the Civil War, which seems like an accurate thing to bring up at this point, an accurate comparison there, considering some of what they want to do. Anyway, Stephen Miller was behind this apparently. He wanted to develop a plan for the number of troops that would be required to seal the entire 2,000-mile border with Mexico. And again, as with the whole wall along the border thing, like there are significant portions that are not crossable, but why would you have to know even that most basic of facts about the border to be in charge of potentially deploying hundreds of thousands of troops? Jesus.
Hate is a powerful factor that drives people, like people like Stephen Miller and Trump. Like again, I say it every time, don't forget, Trump's original agenda item was we have to do something about these damn, did he even specifically say Mexican folks? He just said people coming from the South, because he has to lump everyone. They're rapists, they're murderers, they're killers, and some of them might be good people. So don't forget, that's the basis for his entire presidency. So of course, things like this are in the norm for them. Let's send 250,000 troops to the border, because they also believe that the rest of Americans somehow, because he got elected, the rest of Americans think, hey, we'll send 250,000 troops to the border because those people are just that dangerous, because that's what they believe. Their hatred and their fear of the other is that rabid, that we have to go and make sure that we put armed military at the border, and everyone's gonna be on board with this. Because sadly, a significant number of Americans would be on board with that. And also they realize Americans don't have any idea how many numbers of troops have been sent to other countries, that we were in Afghanistan for that long. And so once we leave, the numbers that we did have there and the comparisons of that, none of that gets paid attention to. We just go, our military sent our troops somewhere. That must be an honorable mission. We've been completely convinced of that.
Yeah, 100%. That we have no idea of the size of our empire, how many bases. We've literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of installations of various sizes in countries around the world, and most people never have to think about that. It is shielded from them. We never have to think about the cost or the implications. But you might say, well, okay, that's really crazy. But you said it was gonna be really crazy. So it is actually even crazier in at least 3 different ways that I will have for you. 2 of them have to do with when this was going to happen, because it's 2020. So for 2 different reasons, I want you to think seriously about what that means. So do you remember what was happening in 2020? I do. There was a pandemic and everyone needed to stay at home and not assemble and don't travel between states. They wanted to send 250,000 soldiers from around the country to all congregate along the border, which would have been devastating to our soldiers at that time. Like COVID would have just ripped through them, claiming the lives of our soldiers, but they didn't care. But there is one other part of this. 2020 was not just the worst year because of the pandemic, it was also an election year. And if you think they weren't thinking about that, you're insane. They were considering effectively waging war at the border as a stunt. There was no actual need to send 250,000 troops. How could there be? So why were they doing it? They were doing it to get people freaked out. In the same way that they cook up the supposed migrant caravans and they lose it about smartly dressed Brazilians crossing the border. They want you to be freaked out. And what better way to do that than to send an invasion force to the southern border? That's what they were planning to do. They were planning to do it to potentially influence the election, to try to get people scared, to get them freaked out in advance of the vote.
It's not that hard of a thing to imagine. There's other things that the president was doing at the time to make sure he gets reelected that were outside the normal bounds. And that's one of the things he was impeached for. Let's keep it real. So it shouldn't be a surprise that he's willing to use the military for his own personal purposes as far as getting reelected. That's like 101 for Trump. In fact, if he didn't do that, I'd be surprised. He basically says like, he thinks every time he says they attacked America when it was him, he thinks he is America. He thinks if he has a negative shot at him, or if he gets attacked for something that he's done, or attacked is the wrong word. The right word is held accountable for his actions. If that happens for him, then that means there's an attack on America. If the troops go to the border to help him get reelected, that's a positive for America. So insert Donald Trump for America whenever he talks about the positive and negatives of things that happen to him and what it does to the country, because he thinks he is America. So no, it's absolutely nothing. There's no reason to not believe he's willing to do something like this. And that now think about him trying to get back in office again in 24, how much more of a mindset he'll have, or now I really have to solidify my place here.
Yeah. Well, there's only one thing remaining. I said it was crazy in 3 more ways. I only gave you 2. I think this third one is maybe the craziest, not in scope, but in precedent. So that is what Stephen Miller and the other, anti-immigrant radicals wanted to do. And thankfully they were stopped. Esper and others apparently shut it down because it's madness in any time, let alone then. As my producer says, it's a human wall. It's basically, Sophie, it's the scene from Us, They wanted to do that for 2,000 miles. But it got crazier. Here is specifically what Trump wanted to do. And if you clicked on the stream, you probably already know what it is. He effectively wanted to invade Mexico. So around the same time that this was going on with Stephen Miller, Mr. Trump pressed his top aides to send forces into Mexico itself to hunt down and wage war against the drug cartels, much like American commandos have tracked and killed terrorists in Afghanistan or Pakistan. So first of all, that's not okay. Now, in some cases, it's been with the approval of the governments. I mean, with Afghanistan, it's a really weird case because obviously they're inextricably tied with us. In Pakistan, sometimes with their approval, but still, we probably shouldn't be doing it. With Mexico, Mexico had no interest in this at all. He wanted to just send them in and fight the cartels. What, like you think it's like a mile over the border and that, oh good, we just a mile? Like how far were they gonna go? How many people were they going to send? And apparently he was only stopped from doing this because it would look like an act of war against one of our closest allies and biggest trading partners. Which by the way, is what it would be because they had no interest in this. It would be invading another sovereign nation as we routinely do. Generally, we don't do it with Mexico. And I will remind you, again, this would be happening during a pandemic and during a presidential election. He was going to effectively invade our neighbor to freak people out, to scare them about the drug war. Because they know, generally the maxim is that, during wars, you don't switch horses midstream or whatever. Like, military stuff gets people worried. That there was a movie about that back in the 90s. This is what they were trying to set up. And again, thankfully they were stopped from doing it, but there is like almost no end to the insanity, what they were willing to use our soldiers to do to benefit them politically. I will remind you of his constant desire to deploy tanks and things like that in military parades. The soldiers are just props to them. They are tools to pursue their own ends.
And those ends, I'm sorry, white supremacy is a hell of a drug. There is a reason why they think there's something like this can happen. They can send troops to go and invade another country, just illegally, just run up and invade to take out the cartels. Because again, there's many indications of the way he thinks and how it transitions into policy. So remember his the Central Park 5 thing. After it was very obvious that those guys didn't do any of that, it was still, well, they must have done something. That was Trump's take on this. Yeah. They must have done something. There were 5 black guys. So in this case, there's no thought of, hey, so if we send troops into another country and our neighboring country illegally invade it and start killing the cartels, there's no thought that there's humans that have nothing to do with cartels that are dying because of your invasion. And the cartels are just so easy to recognize because you walk up and they've got this hat on that says, I'm in the cartel. Because there's this weird explanation to think that this will just work so cleanly and easily because he thinks, hey, they're all the cartel because they're damn Mexicans. That's how he thinks. It's the first part of his entire agenda when he went down the damn escalator. They're all bad people. Let's kill them. That's all it was. It was an actual thought process to carry out what he promised from the very beginning. That's what he thinks. Rules and international laws be damned. I'm Donald Trump and I'm a white guy. I can do what I want.
Yep. And thankfully, got rid of him. Maybe he'll be back. We'll have to see. I want to remind you of something that I've mentioned this 9 times on the show, and we as a country just moved past it, and I'll never understand how we did. But Trump had demanded a wall with flesh-piercing spikes, repeatedly mused about a moat filled with alligators along the border, and asked about shooting migrants in the leg as they crossed the border. His aides had considered a heat ray that would make migrants' skin feel hot. And you might recall Trump was asking about what paint they could use that would make the wall as hot as possible so it would burn people as they crossed it. But he wanted people to be eaten by alligators. He is James Bond villain level out of his effing mind, and he could be president again. We'll find out. By the way, related news, because while Joe Biden is not sending 250,000 soldiers to the border or doing the flesh-piercing spikes, he's hardly great in it. They've considered to use the public health exemption that Trump has been using to effectively deport literally everyone that comes to the border. Also, they're gonna be taking steps to restart by mid-November a program begun under Trump that forced asylum seekers to wait in Mexico for US court hearings after a federal court deemed the termination of the program unjustified. In this particular case, they don't seem to be in the wrong. They canceled it. And then a judge said, no, you can't do that. You got to start it up. And they're apparently working on that while continuing to try to challenge it. But I just want you to understand that partly consensually and partly non-consensually, the situation on the border is better, but not that much better than it was under Donald Trump. There's some stuff that they can't do or that they have had reversed, but there's a lot that they still could do that they're choosing not to. So if you cared about what was going on under Trump, the insanity with the gators and the soldiers invading Mexico, you should care about this stuff too.
Well, even the people that are criticizing Biden's policies at the border, many Republicans know, it's based in just criticizing him and then going, here, let's vote him out. Fine, criticize him for things he's doing at the border. What should we do? Invade? Have a $250,000 military person wall? What is the solution then? Because when Trump was in office, they didn't have a solution outside of these vicious policies like this that wouldn't do much. So what's? Are you looking for the answer or are you looking for something to run on? It's always the question.
Yeah, always something to run on, never something to do. Okay, let's move on to just one of the most disgusting. We have to like process a lot of disgusting stuff in this job, and this is right up there. Tucker Carlson is the absolute worst for a number of different reasons, but his casual cruelty and dehumanizing different groups, I think, deserves to be near the top of that list. I want to show you this video. This is him talking about the unhoused, and take a look at how he talks about this community.
Yeah, so the one thing you can't do is expel the junkies, not the homeless. Homeless makes it sound like some sort of protected class of protesters. No, they're junkies. They're people shooting up, breaking into cars to support their habit, selling themselves, pimping out women. They're junkies, okay? And they're on your kid's school lawn. Well, we can't intervene in that because it's always been that way. Just lower expectations, Karen. In New York City, police have just been ordered not to intervene when they see junkies shooting up on the sidewalk or in a park. Can't get in the way, and you shouldn't, because we've always had junkies in our park. Sam Adams was actually smoking meth.
So we all have to figure out, is this better or worse or about the same as him continually pushing great replacement theory and trying to get people to ignore the threat posed by domestic terrorists and white supremacists? Is this encouraging people to not care about COVID and to get sick and die? But just casually, he is there to justify whatever hatred, whatever suspicion, whatever fear his audience has. He tells them they're right to have it. If you've ever been encouraged to have an ounce of empathy for the unhoused, get rid of that mess. No, these are just junkies. They're criminals. They're prostitutes. You don't have to have any empathy for them. And certainly we shouldn't do anything to actually help these people, Jayar.
Yeah, they're not humans. It's an age-old approach to things. The other and then the lesser, and that group that's out to get you, it's a complete detachment of their humanity. Now you can do whatever you want to people once their humanity doesn't exist anymore on a large scale. Now that's the problem they had with some of the police protests last summer, because there was an explicit call to stop killing specifically this certain group of people, and it kind of spreads to everyone. But the fact that they're targeted more often is the focus of that. And so we can't start having pushback from our normal narratives of those others not being human enough for us to fight for. They were more upset about the fact that people who weren't affected by this police brutality care.
Yeah.
Now, if people start caring about the homeless in general, and that encompasses all races and groups, once we start caring about them, oh my God, what are we gonna do then? Start having policies to help the unhoused? This is gonna be a problem, because then that takes some more of my hoarding of as much as I can get. And that hits every level. So I mean, I'm on those next door neighbor apps and stuff like that, and 75 to 80% of the posts are complaining about the unhoused and tell them what we should do to them. Literally, one of them said, ship them off into the desert and let them stand and hang out there. What is it that they did to you? What is it exactly they did to you to make you want them to get pushed down to the next? Because what they'll say is, get them out of our neighborhood. And I responded once to one of these. I'm like, where do they go next? You send them to what neighborhood? And then does
They
that
don't
neighborhood
care.
does that neighborhood
They don't
then
care.
go, yeah, I love it? Because each neighborhood's gonna act just like you are acting and go, get them the hell out of here. So when is the policy gonna be to actually find out and break down what is about our society that has so many unhoused people? What is about our policies and economic situations that have so many people in these situations? And do we want to end it or do we want to keep complaining about it? Again, where's your action versus your desire to run on something? Because now you get, again, this is locally. Get rid of the councilman, get rid of the mayor, get rid of the governor. Because your park in your rinky-dink street on Maple has homeless folks in it. That has something to do with now Gavin Newsom's coming after you. Like, it's so
Well,
but the reason they have these stupid thoughts because they listen to things like what Tucker Carlson just said.
Exactly, and he gets them to focus on. It's sort of a theme I brought up often, which is getting people to focus on the last step of a thing. Don't think about causes for things. So you should just be mad that there's a homeless person right there, right now. I don't like that homeless person who's right there. Get him away. And Tucker Carlson, if you were to look over all of his economic policies, what sort of prioritization of social spending at the state or the federal level, what kind of policies does he support? Does he support policies that will create more or less unhoused people? We know. Cause the things that you will then hate,
100%.
Make it harder to get birth control and then outlaw the abortions that you hate. Focus at that last step. Don't ever think about the effects of what you're doing. And so let's talk about the impacts as well. They advocate the policies that create these communities. They have no empathy for those people. They train people to not see them as humans. And as Jayar pointed out on that app, we have millions and millions and millions of Americans that do not see them as humans. It might seem as if I'm exaggerating or whatever. They see them as something, I guess, but they don't see them as humans like you or me. And what does that produce? Well, it produces things like this. Back in 2019, and we're just finding out now because he apparently was just suspended. Brad Cox in Dallas is part of the fire rescue department, a paramedic. And there was an unhoused individual that was being accused of setting a grass fire. So they had incapacitated him. And at one point, he started to get up. And we're gonna show you this photo. The video's available. We can't show you the video. And not entirely sure if I'd want to, but let's put up the screenshot. And you'll see what Brad Cox did. He wound up and he kicked the unhoused man in the face. He was laying in the street. He tried to get up. The officer didn't hold him down. He didn't handcuff him. He wound up and kicked him in the face like some 90s gang movie of beating someone down. That's what he did. And that is not something you do to someone that you see as a human.
Paramedic.
The man was left with a black eye. Yeah, he's a paramedic. He's supposed to do no harm. Remember that? Yeah, he forgot it. The man was left with a black eye, bloody nose, multiple fractures to his face, and a swollen right ankle. Cox was cleared of any wrongdoing after an investigation by the Dallas Police Department. The homeless man was identified as Kyle Vest. He's now suing Cox and the city of Dallas. They looked into it and they had the video and they decided that's okay. That's not a problem. Because again, after all, and by the way, they allow a lot of violence against everyone. Let's be clear about that. But an unhoused person, you think a cop is gonna lose their job over that? No way, no way.
No way. That the whole idea. Again, this is in action. The thought of what you can do to someone who is not worth dignity, respect, life. So he set a grass fire. They said, right, for whatever reason.
Don't even know if it's true.
Yeah, maybe it's to keep warm, right? And it's a bad thing to do to set a grass fire because obviously you don't want to set fires. So we have wildfires out here, and many times they're caused by someone shooting off like a baby announcement, boy or girl baby announcement, and it has some flames to it, and they set a whole fire and take out an entire city. If you get to that person, do you have him on the ground and kick him in the face? If he's standing there with his wife, if he's standing up with his family, because he did the same thing. He set an unnecessary fire that can destroy a lot of property and potentially kill people. It's a serious situation. It's arson. So once they do it, do you then have them on the ground and a paramedic walks up and thinks, I'm gonna kick Brian in the face because he set this fire? No, they don't do that. Now they do arrest and charge these folks, which is fine. But for some reason, this guy thinks I can attack him on the ground. And the only reason he thinks that is because of people like Tucker Carlson who continue to perpetuate this mindset that they're nothing. They're not worth it. It's a cockroach on the ground. If it gets by your feet and you don't want it to crawl up your leg, stomp on it.
Yep.
That is the equivalent approach here. And they have no problem with that.
That's what they're training people. And like, this might seem small. Like he talked for like 15 seconds attacking the community. It's not small. Like look up the stats on assaults on the unhoused, murders of the unhoused. It's insane. I just looked up in LA and there's sexual assault in Van Nuys, a police officer, Garden Grove police officer charged with assaulting. Like it's constant. But this is what the show is. None of you watch Tucker Carlson, I'm sure, and I hope, but it is just training people. Hate and fear, hate and fear, hate and fear. Go down the list, every different group. That's what he's training people to found their politics on.
100%.
Now, we do have to take our second break. We come back, we have one more little related topic, but we'll be back after this. Okay, buddy, let's see what's going on out there. Okay. Hey, John says, breaking from Mother Jones, Manchin tells associates he's considering leaving the Democrats and has an exit plan. I can't tell if that's serious or if that's a reference to Iraq. I'm not sure I could believe either. We'll see. Okay, let's see now. Franklin Sharpslicer says, I understand Mom Nature brought you rain and deep snow in Wyoming again. Hopefully it will quench the fire's thirst, but remember, I said it first. Jayar and John, good morning to you. We're ready for news. Goo. Thank you, Franklin. Ridiculous. Ingy Bingy said, John, you need Hartford Whalers gear, only pro sport Connecticut ever had. That is true. I actually went to a Whalers match when I was a kid. I thought it was pretty cool. I was really into hockey at one point because of Mighty Ducks. Anyway, Zonlik says, John, news from the trans community. TERFs are trying to use wearing dinosaurs on their clothing, logos, pins, etc., as a secret code. Okay, I don't know how we fight back against. Obviously, the transphobia is awful. That I think goes without saying. It is the lameness of people. I don't know what we're supposed to do about. Like the Trump supporters who are like, go Brandon. And when they say it, it means F Biden. So they just say it. And Ted Cruz did a video of him saying it. And so they're gonna wear the dinosaurs so that you know that they hate trans people. That's not cool. Like why, they made, like, remember on Friends? What is this? What is this? You remember that?
No.
It's how Ross would say a swear word because he couldn't say a swear word when he was a little boy and he wanted to get away with swearing. So he came up with this. They're whole political movements that are no more sophisticated than Ross Geller at 5. It's not cool. I could make up something. Let's see. Cup means the S word. Cup. I swore so many times. Look at me getting away with it. I don't understand this country. I don't understand how people.
The reason
work.
these guys treat their voting blocks and their people like children is because they act like children.
Yeah, the OK symbol. Washa says 100%. Okay. Jackson Kissling says fines in absolute dollars are just permission slips for the wealthy. In my magical imaginary country, fines would be a percentage of a criminal's net worth. That is not actually entirely imaginary. There are, I forget which countries do that, but it's considered like it's like a day fine, I think they call it. It's like a fine that is equivalent to what you would make in a day, and so it scales for rich people. I don't remember. Is it Germany? Is it one of the Nordic countries? I'm not entirely sure, but it does exist. It's a good idea. Yander says, hi, John. I just found out some terrible, shocking news over the weekend. A musician associate that I did promotional DJ work with, Andrea Meyer, was one of the people killed in the attack in Norway. I'm really sorry to hear that. That's just terrible that it happens at all, but then find out that you knew somebody there. Geez. Sorry about that. Okay, let's see. Pretty Bottom Loco hit 12 months on Twitch. Says 1 whole year. Woohoo! Love TDR and TYT. Happy anniversary. Thank you for being here with us. Sarcastic Snowflake hit 9 months. Says so thankful I found TYT and TDR. You all are awesome. Thank you. You're awesome as well. Emo Dragon says, I had a jersey and starter jacket. Charlotte Hornets have a dope color scheme. They do. Awesome little logo, great color scheme. That's the only reason I had it. You'll be shocked to find out. We'll be right back. Oh, heads up to the production team. I am going to follow your advice, and we are going to quickly do that if it wasn't clear. I also wanted to let you know a few exciting things happening today. In fact, our Twitch community is just going to get a little bit bigger with a new show happening at 4 p.m. Eastern time, 1 p.m. Pacific time. You might have heard of one Francesca Fiorentini. Her Twitchuation room is going to be launching. And by the way, I love that this is launching for a few reasons. One, it's great to have more content like on our Twitch stream. So basically every day at 1 Pacific, 4 Eastern, you can tune in and see something awesome. But also she did a little bit of back and forth with me about potential names, and I supported the Twitchuation room, and I'm glad that she went with it. Anyway, that's coming up. It'll be a lot of fun. Also, later on today, I'll be joining Anna Kasparian for the second hour of the Young Turks. It's Ice Cream Wednesdays, and we always have a lot of fun. You didn't know that? Every Wednesday in the second hour, or in the post game, we have an ice cream party, which is exactly what my waistline needed. Anyway, but it is a lot of fun, and that'll be happening later on.
I do have one thing for you, John. I got your back because, as I told you, you have a hat for every occasion. You have a hat for every occasion. Every occasion. So, hey, I didn't hear the viewer's name who pointed out, but Hartford Whalers all the way.
Can I just say this is so totally what should be happening? Not right now. We don't have time for this. Sorry. I don't wear baseball caps. I always think that I look weird. Back in freshman year, I lived in the hippie dorm, and I used to wear them backwards when I was growing my hair until it looked like Rob Van Dam. I don't wear them forward. I think I look weird or like a creepy stalker in it. Anyway, okay. With that needless information,
recognize the issues and carry on.
I'm trying. Okay, we'll see what happens with this block. Let's jump into this story. We've known for a long time that Tucker Carlson has some fans, and those fans are white supremacists. Not all of them necessarily, but out white supremacists, Stormfront, all of that. Big fans of Tucker Carlson and the way that he has normalized this hate speech and pro-white supremacy talking points in a way that they weren't able to. That in a way, people like Alex Jones and stuff like that, they'd say it and they were considered too crazy. Glenn Beck would touch on some of the like anti-Semitic stuff, and that was considered too crazy. But now in 2021, we've regressed so much that Tucker Carlson can just say it out and out. And some of those people are like a little bit surprised by that. Have you heard of David Duke, the former grand troglodyte of the KKK or whatever? He recently said, and we're not gonna play his voice because I think it will literally drive you mad. He said, how could it be that I'm an evil guy when all of the fundamental things that Tucker says, the fundamental things he says, except for the fact they don't dare talk about the real truth of the real racism that dominates this country, the Jewish racism that dominates, that's an amazing take too, isn't it? So there, Tucker doesn't go quite far enough for him, but he says it's really interesting that all of these things that Tucker is talking about now, Tucker's been around a long time too. He's been around from the 1990s, 2000s, and in his career, 2000s. And he finally, in the last 3 or 4 years, somewhat also with the Trump campaign, but he's finally come around to start even using the word white people in any context. It's not a word, it's 2 words, yeah. But anyway, you can't expect much from white supremacists. They're stupid as hell. Anyway, so he's like really like happy about it. And well, actually, he's responding to this in a different. Well, sorry, what were you saying, Jayar?
Go finish. Go ahead.
Yeah, so he's like excited. He's psyched. Online, you go to 4chan and everything, they're psyched. We never would have thought that we could have normalized this stuff. Others have tried to raise the alarm about it. The Anti-Defamation League had pushed for Fox News to fire Tucker Carlson after he began pushing for the Great Replacement theory, which has often been used against Jewish individuals. Carlson told them, well, F them. ADL. They used to care supposedly about the ADL and concerns about anti-Semitism, but now, no, you're not gonna stop me from my grift. F you.
Hey, you know what? David Duke is making a point here. How am I the evil guy when you guys literally have multiple people on Fox News saying what I've been saying since the 80s or whenever the hell he had a lot of prominence for saying the things he says? He's right. So if a lib comes out and says, hey, you guys sound just like David Duke, you guys are white supremacists, how dare you? But how about when the white supremacist says, hey, you sound just like me. I'm glad you finally came around.
Yeah.
Crickets. So, hey, we always know where the support comes from. We always know where the support comes from when people like this, but you just ignore it and ignore it and ignore it. And David Duke is tired of not getting his just due, not getting his rightful place as the originator of the Republican Party's latest stance and their general base. Their general base is David Duke. He keeps pointing it out. The 4chans keep pointing out. The Qs keep pointing it out. The Proud Boys keep pointing it out. The backyard militias keep pointing it out. Hey, we're violent, insurrectionists, terrorists, and we hate anyone that's not white. We love you. How is it that we're seeing that and it's not coming together as the obvious point? Because they control the narrative, that's why.
Yeah, 100%. And look, Fox, like in the beginning, they identified as just, we're fair and balanced, we're just news or whatever. And it took a lot of work from a lot of individuals to make clear that everyone understood that that was not the case. They were, hard right wingers. It was conservative, Media Matters and like Jon Stewart and stuff like that, and got people to realize that. But they still were able to get through that time with, oh sure, they're biased, they're conservative, but I mean, they're not crazy. They're not Alex Jones or anything like that. No, they're just as bad. It takes like 8 minutes to go from 4chan to Alex Jones to Breitbart to Tucker Carlson. It takes like less than a day now. But for some reason, because he's on Fox and Fox is carried on cable and he wears a tie and he reads from a teleprompter, it's considered not as insane as it is when a guy with tinfoil capping his head says the exact same words. So anyway, and by the way, like if someone like David Duke says that like you and him are like affiliated, that is not by itself proof that you are, but you should take it into account and look at what they're saying. But we don't even do that. We don't even do that. We don't listen to what David Duke says. We just use like David Duke to attack people like India Walton, as we talked about yesterday with Nina Turner. Like that's the guy that the New York Dem leader was comparing to India Walton. The guys are like, why don't they understand the true racism, which is the Jews? That's the socialist, black woman from New York. Same thing.
Doesn't have to make sense. Just hit the scary people, the points. We've demonized enough people. We talked about homeless folks in the last block. We've demonized enough people that all you gotta do is say their name in a negative light, and then it'll clear you of any other thought process. Be like, oh well, that's right. Anti-Semitism is cool now, right? Because Tucker Carlson said so.
Just insane. And look, people have tried the things that you're supposed to do. They've tried like pushing for ad boycotts, and his advertisers are all like, like online catheters and stuff like that. But it just doesn't matter. Fox, their whole thing is based on Tucker Carlson now. It doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't unless he, gets O'Reilly. That's pretty much it. Anyway, that's all the time we have for the first hour. More news coming, so stick around after this break. Welcome back, one and all, Twitch and YouTube. We've got some exciting, fun news for you. Not immediately, but before we do that, I did want to let you know about a few things. So one is probably too late. There was one XL of the bomber jacket at Shop TYT. It's probably gone. But we do have something else that's cool at Shop TYT, and that was in this doc and it's now gone. Okay, there's a Dragon Squad Heather, let's see, hoodie. Yes, okay, I taken a screenshot, it was gone. Okay, so new Heather hoodie, Dragon Squad, Shop TYT, that should be available. Shouldn't be sold out, so you can go take a look at that. Lots of fun stuff there. Let's see. Oh, also, I wanted to let you know this. If you watched Indisputable, then you already know about this. But just in case, they've started a petition to try to get a police officer fired. He'd been filmed slamming an LA woman who had just been assaulted herself. He then assaults her. Chantel Arnold is this woman. And so if you go to tyt.com/petition/Chantel-Arnold, they're trying to get as many people as possible to sign this. So definitely go and do that. And I'm sure they'll be talking about it on Indisputable after this as well, which will be coming up after our show. Dina Dahl is gonna be the co-host, so it should be a lot of fun. Armstrong Williams will be on for a debate. YouTube.com/Indisputable TYT. Okay, also Smash Dragon on YouTube became a tier 2 member for the 7th month in a row. So shout out to John, Jayar, and all my Dragon friends and family. Literally my reason for living on days like today. Thank you so much, it's really nice of you. I also saw this comment on Twitch from Technausea. It said, when David Duke came into the pet store I worked at, he had a little Maltese dog. I had to say it, of course it's a white dog. Of course. Vicky Gray sent in a second super chat saying, Barry, please.
Hey, I'm
Maybe
telling
we can
you,
end
bro.
the show.
Hey,
Maybe we can end the show.
when the flail army speaks, you kind of have to answer to them,
Hashtag Team Flail.
Team Flail, Flail Army.
Yeah, he's less flaily and more just like
We've been
iron cross.
We've been hitting the gym, man. We've been hitting the gym.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God. Okay. With that, I think we've got to get into some news. Meanwhile, it is coming, so let's talk about this.
Let's do it.
You know that Congress people can pretty much do whatever they want when it comes to stock purchases. There is like minimal oversight, minimal supervising of what they do. And even that minimal stuff, they often run afoul of. We've had Dave Leventhal of Insider on many times to talk about this. Well, he's caught another one. This is Representative Mo Brooks of Alabama. He ended up disclosing eventually that he sold up to $50,000 worth of stock in the pharmaceutical company Pfizer. So this is amazing for a few different reasons, especially considering his talk about vaccination over this time. But he was late in doing it. They sold up to $50,000 worth of Pfizer stock on August 16th, didn't disclose it until October 14th, nearly a month after the federals stopped trading on Congressional Knowledge Act of 2012. So that is like the bare minimum. You just need to eventually let us know what you do, and they can't even comply with that. And so they violate it by not disclosing within 30 days if they or themselves or their spouse do it. And he couldn't even hit that. Now, here's the interesting thing. The family has owned Pfizer stock since November 2019 under an inheritance after the congressman's mother died. But the couple increased the amount of stock they owned in the company by as much as $30,000 through purchases in March 2020 and again in July 2020. So remember like all the talk we had about Loeffler and Perdue last year, the former senators, incredibly corrupt, used the secret knowledge that they had to buy a bunch of stocks and everything. Look, for the July one, maybe we all knew what was going on, maybe. With March though, that's in that very beginning period where they're being briefed, they're finding out about this, potentially they're finding out about plans in the Trump administration for Operation Warp Speed and which companies might be participating in it and all that. I don't know, I certainly didn't know about that in March 2020. And yet they decided to almost double down on Pfizer stock, despite the fact that like they would later go on with attacking like Mo Brooks has his tweet, and it's really weird. So he says that the vaccine is really effective, which is positive, and it's potentially if people take it, it'll influence his stock. But he also says that they delay the announcement until after the election out of fear of retribution from the socialists. So they delayed it to hurt Trump, but he's still investing in it because sure, they screwed over his buddy, I guess, in his conspiratorial mind, but he still wants to get paid off of Pfizer. And he's against the mandate. I don't understand, Jayar. I don't understand everything that's going on in the addled mind of Mo Brooks. But what I do know is that I don't want any of them being able to individually purchase and own stock when they're getting secret information, and the stock that they have might influence how they vote, whether they vote for something, the legislation they write. The entire thing is a disgusting mess.
Well, the reason it doesn't make sense is because this is the approach of an unprincipled human being. So if you don't have any principles, if you don't stand by anything, if you don't believe or not believe, if you believe and don't believe in the Pfizer vaccine at the same time, win-win. So therefore, the people who do believe in it and do purchase it, or the development of it, you benefit. And the people who don't believe in it because you've told them not to believe in anything like that, and then they rail against it, you get to use them for re-election purposes. So you stay in power, continue to have access to this type of information, continue to make money off of it, and then afterwards, recycle and do it again for the next event. You have your position of power based off of lying to people who then believe you, and then you rail against the correct approach and make money off of it. It's all good. Principles be damned. Principle is making money. That's the principle. And as he talks about socialist Democrats, hey, this is the basis for capitalism. Apparently, this capitalistic society we live in is so great that people in certain positions of power get to benefit from it much more accessible, much more rarely than you get to. You get nothing. You get no access to learning how to make more money in this land of opportunity. But he gets to sit at the top after an inheritance from his mother, gets to then use his position to enrich himself further. Does that sound great to you? Oh, let's vote for Mo Brooks. This guy's really on our side.
Yeah, he's gonna do what's right. And how many of them that are out there oh yeah, no, vaccine, super suspicious and all that, they've got Pfizer stock and they've got stock in J&J and they're making money off of this and they're vaccinated. The entire thing is disgusting. So look, overall, this isn't as big as some of the figures of others. Mo Brooks, in comparison to the rest of our ruling class, is seemingly broke AF. $30,000, you broke bastard. Take a look at Loeffler's investments, but it is corrupt. They are as corrupt as they can afford to be, effectively. He just can't afford as much as everyone. But none of them should be able to own stock. It's insane that we allow it. Now, let's move on really fast to one more topic before we move into our final closing segment. The AP has released the results of their investigation into police force brutality against children, and the numbers are absolutely insane. They looked at over 3,000 instances of police using force against children under the age of 16. That's how they're defining it, over a little bit more than 1 decade. And they found incidents from 25 police departments in 17 states. So do not believe that this is the entirety of the use of force that is happening. It's not incorporating a lot of different states. And by the way, these are only the things that actually get reported and logged for them to eventually look at. So understand, first of all, here's sort of an issue. There are no laws that specifically prohibit police force against children. It seems like socially it would be an issue to brutalize a kid, not so much. Some departments have policies that govern how old a child must be to be handcuffed, but very few mention age in their use of force policies. And we've seen the videos of them dragging kids in handcuffs out of elementary schools. So it doesn't seem to be widespread, these policies. And here's the thing, the actual use of force is horrible. The racial component of this is horrible too. Black children made up more than 50% of those who are handled forcibly, though they are only 15% of the US child population. Massively overrepresented in police use of force. They and other minority kids are often perceived by police as being older than they are. There was a study back by the APA back in 2014 that said that Black boys as young as 10 may not be viewed with the quote, same childhood innocence as their white peers, and are more likely to be perceived as guilty and face police violence. Other studies have found a similar bias against Black girls as well. And that is how you have cops who are far more likely to use a variety of different forms of force, which we'll get into, against Black boys and girls, Jayar.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not widespread. Maybe it's not widely known. I was gonna say this is the most obvious thing ever, as horrible as it is, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's not that easy to see for people because if you don't live and experience it or understand or seen it before, which is again why some people are recording encounters, because it causes people who think, oh yeah, that was a one-off thing. Oh yeah, they don't really all believe that. This is, again, I've said it for things like this when it comes to officials and people in positions where they actually affect someone else's life. This is a societal problem. And it's why the culture wars are such a big deal that many conservatives wage. Reason why they other the homeless and they other minorities and they'll other women and they'll other anyone who's doing something that's positive for an approach that may take some kind of clout or some kind of a position of power away from them. Our whole society buys into this stuff. So you think if a police officer doesn't have these biased accounts and thoughts about black kids, that he doesn't take it into work with him? Yeah. We talked about these studies before when teachers may reprimand children at different levels because of the perception. They're part of society. Just because they put on the uniform, whatever days of the week that they go to work, doesn't mean that they're a different person on the 2 days that they're not working when they're driving in traffic and they yell at someone or they think that this person is doing something because of who they are. Just because you feel that doesn't change when you put the uniform on. In fact, it's horrible that we don't find out who these folks are and how they operate before they get positions where they affect other people's lives.
Yeah, it's just crazy, and we allow it. And you can literally prove the bias against kids in particular. And conservatives won't admit that there is literally 1% any discrimination, any bias anywhere. Nina Turner and I were talking about Tucker Carlson and the way he was talking about affirmative action yesterday. They don't believe that there has ever been one quark of discrimination in hiring. They see little boys as not being innocent if they're black. But that has no effect on anyone. It doesn't affect anyone's life. It's amazing that they can think this.
Yeah, this doesn't affect their lives. It doesn't affect their lives. There's their own lives that matter, which is why they're so mad at that slogan.
Exactly. And by the way, this involves everything from bodily force, uncategorized, to restraints, firearms, handcuffs, stun guns, police canines, and impact weapons. They're kids. They're kids.
Go back to when you were 13 years old, and if a cop did that to you, if you would forget about it, or if it would just stick with you the rest of your life.
Like for me, maybe for a lot of people, if a cop yelled at me, it would have freaked me out. An impact weapon? What does that mean? What does that even mean? They're hitting you with a weapon. That's all that means. It means it's not a sword, basically. Oh God. Okay, we're gonna get ready for our final segment because time is rapidly running out. Is there time? Okay, Bernie the Kiwi Dragon said in the super chat, good evening from UK. Thank you for our weekly J&J big news shots. One day Carlson will think himself untouchable, go too far and destroy himself. When it happens, just sit back and watch him squirm. I don't know if there's a mechanism to be destroyed anymore. O'Reilly got fired because of the sexual harassment. Glenn Beck got fired, I think because of the anti-Semitism. I don't remember exactly. I don't think that those mechanisms exist anymore. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jayar, are you ready for a little bit of fun? Your favorite topic in the world, animals?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. It's time for news. Hey, Skiff. Anyway, meanwhile, in the animal kingdom, there's a volcano and there are some dogs and there are drones, and there's no way that you can combine that is not simultaneously terrifying and scary and also kind of exciting. So we're gonna play you some B-roll. Can I talk over this? I can talk over this, right? Let's play this B-roll. And what you're gonna see is dogs this is from about a week ago. They have been stranded on this island off the coast of Spain, trapped next to a volcano that is erupting. They've been there for weeks. Drones have been sending them, dropping food for them, because people are trying to figure out how do you rescue them. They might think send a helicopter, but they can't. Apparently there are regulations. The hot gas could damage the rotors and the helicopters could actually crash. So here's what they're planning on doing. They're planning on taking a big old drone and sending it there. A 50-kilogram drone operator Aero Camaras is considering this. It's gonna have a big net, and it's gonna try to trap the dogs one at a time and fly them to safety. But to do that, they not only have to get the dog, they have to go 450 meters of lava across. Like this is a long stretch where if it fails, if the drone crashes, if the dog drops, it is literally going to fall into lava. I sort of joked in our meeting this morning that this is the highest stakes game of crane ever. This is terrifying, Jayar. I know it doesn't affect you in any way because they're dogs, but I would not want to be the person flying that drone.
Well, actually, that's what I was just thinking. I said the best part about this is being the person to do it. Because, okay, look at this. This is a win-win, bro. If I save the dog with my drone and I'm the best crane manager ever, everybody praises me.
That's true.
If I mess up and I drop the dog, or whatever reason, the hot lava gases melt my drone motors and then it drops. Hey, I tried. When does a hero and when does a good Samaritan get lambasted for trying? Hey man, I tried. That means I did care about the dogs. The downside is not caring about these dogs, not doing anything about it. Because guess what? If we do nothing, they're gonna die slow, painful, starving deaths.
Oh, they are.
Whatever it is, it's gonna be way worse. Either we drop them in, trying to get them out and get it over with.
I know it has to happen. I'm just terrified for what's gonna happen. And by the way, if you want to see heroes being lambasted for trying and failing, watch the show The Boys. Everybody needs to watch The Boys. Anyway, yeah, no, it's terrifying. People in the chat are like, don't let them become hot dogs. No, don't
How did they get there? How did the dogs get there? Who did this? Who's responsible for this?
I think the area was abandoned and the dogs were left behind. I think, like feral dogs will stay in areas where humans no longer live. People are saying the floor is actually lava. Someone said Squid Game. This is just too. I'm too terrified. I'm really worried about these dogs. Please send your best drone operator.
I'm not the bad guy.
The lava's the bad guy. Okay. Meanwhile, still in the animal kingdom, zebras are on the loose, but there's a plan, okay? It's a different plan from the lava plan, but it's a plan. Back in September of last month, we found out that there was a small herd of zebras that were on the loose in Maryland. My producers tell me that a group of zebras is called a dazzle. That's awesome. You can see, imagine you see a random zebra in Maryland. So they had said there were 5 owned by a private farm. Apparently there were 3 and 1 was found dead. Oh, losing a zebra is so devastating, but 2 are still on the loose. Okay, so Jayar, they have a plan to get the zebras loose. Officials say the owner and caretaker have taken 2 zebras from their herd that are still back where they should be, and they're keeping them in an enclosure in the center of a corral. They're gonna use those zebras and food to lure in the other zebras. They say our priority is make sure they're captured and returned to the herd. Once this is accomplished, the county's gonna look into it or whatever. That's not the important part. And people have been seeing them, by the way. And one woman called in the authorities and said, I am not drinking. I have not had any drugs. I have zebras in my backyard. So they're gonna try to lure them in with food and other zebras. What do you think of the plan?
It sounds like a decent plan. They'll see some happy, familiar faces that they're chowing down. Like, this is a good spot to go. I like the plan. The other thing is, I just wish this was possible to be normal. You may see a deer jump across the road in Maryland. Why can't zebras? Well, zebras probably don't naturally live in that area, so they probably may not survive it. I'm not sure what the one who died, what happened, but I kind of like a little bit of nature being around us. It sucks if you end up in a bad situation. Like, there's coyotes everywhere around here, and people walking their little dogs or letting their cats out, they get eaten. That's a downside to having to live in this area. But it's kind of cool. It's a little cool, a little terrifying when it comes to things like that. But zebras, bro, imagine getting to see zebras the way you see deer.
I would lose it. When I see a rabbit in LA, I kind of freak out. I see a squirrel, it's pretty amazing. I by the way, I saw a family of raccoons, including a tiny baby raccoon. Yeah. They went down a tree near me. Man, that one raccoon was huge. They get really big.
I took video of some of them. It's like possum everywhere. It's skunks. It's beautiful.
There was a skunk outside of the studio. Actually, it's amazing. It's amazing. We need more animals in our lives. Here's the thing. I don't know if anyone else thought this, but when I heard of their plan to use a zebra to lure the other zebras, I wanted to show you this video, but apparently we can't get away with it. I'm gonna put up screenshots though. This is from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and Charlie found out that Sweet D, had a cat stuck in her wall. And so he decided he had a plan. He was going to punch a small hole in the wall, and he was going to lower another cat on a string into the wall. And then that cat would strike up a relationship with the cat in the wall and lure them out. I don't want to spoil it. That cat got lost in the wall, but don't worry, he had a plan. He took a third cat and he put a string on it, and he would lure that to lure the other two out. I just hope that it works better with the zebras than it did with the cats.
It's a foolproof plan, foolproof.
Foolproof, and made it by a fool, actually. Okay, with that, meanwhile in. Meanwhile, in the animal kingdom, still there, koalas have a bit of a problem, but science might be on the way to help them out. There's this Australian university, and scientists believe that they have now come up with a potentially effective vaccine for chlamydia for koalas. And about 400 Australian koalas have now been vaccinated against chlamydia. They're doing this trial to see if they can save some of their lives. Because apparently chlamydia has been a big issue for koalas. And I'm gonna guess, I feel like we talked about this years ago on Meanwhile In, but that was pre-vaccine. So the chlamydia epidemic in koalas has been ravaging populations since the 1990s, especially along the east and southeast Australian coasts. Some populations of koalas have infection rates of up to 100%. And considering that back in 2018, a bunch of koalas died from the wildfires, about 30%, they believe anything we can do to save them, to protect them, we need to do. And so they're starting to roll out the vaccine.
John, I honestly just have one thought, that I'm just tired of these socialist liberals out here trying to enforce vaccines on koalas who had no intention of getting it. Where's their freedom? We're just gonna stick them with the jab, and next you know we're gonna be tracking them with computer chips and all this stuff. Hey, they're koalas, they just wanna have some fun. But the problem is they are a bit promiscuous apparently, as look at that guy.
I know, what's going on with the koalas?
We think that he's hanging on that tree going high, instead he's thinking other things.
Yeah, like I'm not judging. I'm not trying to yuck anyone's yum. I'm not trying to do king shame koalas. I'm just saying, wrap it up, buddy. Wrap it up, okay? Because you're dirty and you're killing each other with this stuff. So anyway, look, I'm glad. It turns out vaccines can be good, actually. No reports yet on anti-vax koalas. We'll see if any of them turn against it. Hashtag koalas do not comply. That's what I would say. But anyway, that is your animal news for Meanwhile In. Jayar, thank you as always for joining us for Big News Wednesdays. It got weird, but you know that sometimes that happens.
Hey, I just want to make sure that everyone realizes that I'm such an animal lover. After all that, I'm rescuing dogs, and I want to wrap up the koalas.
He will personally help them with their birth control and protection. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Great to have you here for Big News Wednesdays. It does continue though. Not only do we have Indisputable, which is gonna be coming up right after this, we've also got the debut of the Twitchwation Room on Twitch. So if you're not already, go to twitch.tv/TYT. You can follow us for free. We also have subscribers, and if you hang out, people love to gift subscribers, so it's possible that you'll get it. Francesca Fiorentini will be there. She's been gone for a bit, so it's gonna be super exciting. And I will be joining Anna Kasparian for the second hour of the Young Turks later on. But until then, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, stay chlamydia free out there, and I'll see you soon.